Hey everybody, and welcome back to some more Oxygen Not Included. A couple of cycles have passed since the end of the last episode. We're now on cycle 446, and between episodes I've done a little bit of work doing some small things around the base, like filling this area in here to give a slightly higher decor bonus to what was originally a pretty poor area for decor due to all of the heavy watt wire that we had running through the middle here. And I've also gone ahead and replaced a couple of the heavy watt wires with heavy watt joint plates, which I think do actually help quite a bit when it comes to decor, because first of all, they do have a lower decor rating in general. They have a decor of negative 22.5 as opposed to the negative 25 of the heavy watt wire, but also I'm fairly certain that these take up 3 tiles worth of space as opposed to the 1 tile that the heavy watt wire takes up. And so I think by having a heavy watt joint plate here, we effectively turn what would normally be about negative 75 decor from 3 heavy watt wire into negative 22.5 decor for the 1 heavy watt joint plate. And so either way, long story short, we now have slightly better decor up here. You can see it's still not perfect. There are still areas that have like negative 69 or, negative 6.5 even over this hanging pot here, which I completely forgot we had. I thought we had to wait until we had the aero pot, is it? Which I don't even think we've unlocked yet. It's here, the aero pot, which can hang from the roof but uses plastic as opposed to whatever the default resource that the hanging pot uses. But I've done that. I've moved the rock crusher up into the new area up here. I moved it away from our research room, again, in an effort to try and lower the amount of heat being generated around the core of the base. And since the end of last episode, the heat has come down tremendously around the middle of the base here. You'll see we're now hanging around 25 to 28 degrees Celsius, depending on which room you go in. Some of the rooms that have these stale water pipes that are not really moving right now for the lavatories and whatnot, those are still a little bit warmer because there is still some warm water in those pipes. But slowly but surely, as time goes on, we should hopefully see the temperature in the entirety of the base come down. There's really only one outlier right now, and that is, you can see right here, there's like a red line that goes right through the middle of this room here and is kind of heating up this area on the left of the base, and that is the polluted water coming from our natural gas generators, because of course the natural gas generators are very hot right now, closing in on 100 degrees Celsius, and therefore the water that they output is also very, very hot, currently sitting at 73.5 degrees Celsius. And right now we are pumping that almost boiling polluted water across, up, and around straight through the middle of our base, which of course is resulting in significantly higher water temperatures. And so one of the first things I do want to do in today's episode is first of all tell you about this area as well, because this is another thing that I've done between episodes, mostly just kind of trying to clear things up around here. I've put in a floor. This is where our thermo aqua tuna is that we built at the end of the last episode, but I put a floor in. I put down a gas pump to try and get rid of some of the massive amounts of chlorine that were in this area, because as soon as we kind of opened this area up, all of the chlorine and polluted oxygen that was down in this area got replaced by carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide sank right down, thus pushing all of the polluted oxygen and all of the chlorine up into this room here. And then because we have airflow tiles at the top of our power room, all of that chlorine and all that polluted oxygen got pushed even further up into the core of the base. And between episodes, it was kind of getting to the point where the chlorine was going to start entering these rooms here, which is not great. It's going to interrupt the sleep. It's going to mean that our duplicates can't breathe while they're in bed, which of course is not what we want. And so I put down a gas pump. I started to pump out all of the chlorine into these 2 gas reservoirs here, which you can see are full of chlorine and polluted oxygen. And I even had to go as far as to adding even more gas reservoirs over here because there was just so much chlorine in this area. I also put down a little bit of a gas pump right about here because, again, we did have chlorine kind of along this section of the base. You can see there was still a little bit kind of hanging around here, but we pumped most of it away into this gas reservoir. And now we've got this nice area here. I moved the ladder over to the left a bit, so now all 3 of the coal generators can come online as and when they need to. I moved the carbon skimmer. This is now on the ground, and I redirected the carbon dioxide that is coming from our natural gas generators so that now all of that carbon dioxide is pumped down and comes out of this vent here, and so should eventually get cleared out by our carbon skimmer and sent out in the form of polluted water. So now that that is all taken care of, let's go ahead and fix the polluted water pipe problem. And I think the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to try and connect this pipe here up with this pipe here that's currently bringing in polluted water from this little water source that we've got down here, which is very quickly running out of water. And so I think at some point in today's episode, we are going to have to look into other sources of water. We do have this swamp biome on the left of our base here, which does have quite a lot of polluted water. And so I'm thinking I might do the same thing that we did with this pocket down here, simply put a pump right about there and then dig up through all three of these pockets of water and have it all flow down into this area and then send it off to be filtered. But real quick, before I start with any of that, the big thing that I want to work on in today's episode is trying to get transit tubes up and running. And to do that, of course, we have to select the research for transit tubes. And my idea for this is to essentially try and mitigate and lower the amount of travel time that our duplicates have in general, and also make them a lot faster at getting up to the top area of the base, like this area here, and eventually the second cool steam vent, which I'm 99% certain is up here and producing this clean water. I didn't get to that between episodes, but we do still need to activate and harvest the water from that at some point fairly soon if we're going to make our base more sustainable. And I'd also like to make them quicker at getting down to the very bottom of our base as well, because another thing that I would like to start looking at in the coming episodes is trying to get an oil geyser. Are they called oil wells? I think oil well is the pump. Yeah, so oil reservoir is what they're called. There are little oil reservoirs on the map. I don't think we've actually found any just yet, but essentially what they do is if you pump, I think it's like a kilogram of water per second into an oil pump, it will, or into an oil well, it will then extract, I think, 3,000 or 3 kilograms of oil per second from an oil reservoir, and it essentially acts as an oil geyser, providing unlimited oil going forward so long as we can continually pump 1,000 grams a second of water into it, which is quite a big ask. We're currently pumping 1,000 grams per second of water into our electrolyzer, and so finding another spare 1,000 grams of water per second solely for oil would require us finding and getting into using the water from this geyser up here. But nevertheless, jumping right back real quick, I want to get the research for transit tubes going. Now that that's going, let's come back over to our plumbing here. A little bit of jumping around, but I want to get that research going before we started doing any building over here. And essentially what I'm thinking is we might actually be able to run this down and then connect it up to this line. And in doing so, I think we'll actually cool down the water, because even though this area down here is quite hot, 47, 46, 50 degrees Celsius, especially around the thermo aquatuna, that's still nowhere near the 75, 80 degrees Celsius that the water that is coming out of the natural gas generators is. And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and for now, if we go to the plumbing overlay, I'm just going to delete like this pipe right here just to stop the water flowing for the time being. It doesn't really matter too much if it backs up kind of in this area for a minute or so. And then essentially, I think if we get rid of, let's say, this tile here, I don't think there is any power or anything running through there. There isn't. Good stuff. And then it should just be as simple as running the pipe for polluted water that was currently taking water away from the carbon skimmer. If we run that across and then down and then connect that up over to here, that I think should just work. Now, the hard bit, of course, is going to be digging out and getting it so that our duplicates can actually build this, because right now a lot of this here is unreachable. And so I think it should hopefully be as simple as just building some tile along here so they can actually reach that. They should be able to dig through here, no problem. And right now this door is locked because, of course, we don't want more polluted oxygen and more chlorine coming up into the base. Even though there is a little bit of chlorine here already, that should hopefully stay there right now. It shouldn't overflow into the base because there's no more gas coming in to this area thanks to all of our water locks. And so we'll run that around there. That should hopefully decrease the core temperature, especially in this room here, where you can I find it funny that you can even see like exactly where that pipe is, because it's just so hot compared to the surrounding area, which is doing very well right now. And in fact, I even noticed between episodes that the end view here of the pincher peppers were actually not growing because of temperature. Like, this room was too cold despite having the thermoregulator inside of it, just because this room over here is now at 18.7 degrees Celsius. It's so cold in this room that not enough oxygen was being pumped around. You can see this pipe here is empty due to the fact that the oxygen is just not being pumped around as much as it was in the past, which is a good thing for our pincher peppers and for our power network. For our bristle blossoms, our power network, but not such a good thing for our pincher peppers over here, which have been suffering a little bit. Right now, they are lacking fertilization from phosphorite, which could be potentially a long-term problem. I think previously we were getting our phosphorite from our Drecos. It does still say that they excrete phosphorite, so it's actually fine. I was worried for a second that maybe because these guys made plastic, they wouldn't also excrete phosphorite. It looks like they do, which is good. And we do have some phosphorite on the floor here, so it should hopefully just be a case of a duplicant coming and bringing the fertilizer over, at which point, hopefully, these will all come back online. I did also, between episodes, schedule the pinch of peppers to be placed in the fridge. Previously, they were just sitting on the floor here and decaying if they were never used. Now they're being put up in here as well, which is fantastic. And as far as research goes, I'm actually not sure where our duplicants have been getting water from up until now. Because right now, our clean water source that we've had pretty much since the beginning of the game is kind of trapped in this area here. And so Stinky is managing to find water somewhere. I'm not quite sure where he's going to get that water. It could be that he's just... I actually have no idea. Oh, he's picking it up off the floor, I see. So whenever we mop up, he's going in and grabbing that. Real quick, what I think I will do is try and make this tank here just a little bit wider, because I would like my duplicants to be able to use this water, but if we were to try and put a pitcher pump in right now, I think the water would leak over the edge, and there's also really not that much room at the top here anyway. And so if we just make this a little bit wider and then delete these tiles here, and then eventually obviously delete these tiles here, I think we can have that kind of flow into a wider, shallower body of water that we can then put a pitcher pump in and have our duplicants use freely. That is going to require a couple of ladders, so we'll do that as well, like so. But that should hopefully take care of any potential water issues, especially as we start looking to do more research, potentially relating to all of this kind of rocketry research at the bottom. I am having a bit of a weird issue with the research tree. Previously, before I installed the mod that lets us zoom right out, I couldn't zoom out past like here with the research tree. Now I can, but I also can't go too far down on the research tree. If I do this, it just bounces me back up. And so, somewhat annoyingly, if I want to view the rocket research, I have to zoom right out to like here and then hover over it to see what's going on. It does make it a little tricky to see what's what down there, but I'll try and fix that at some point between episodes. Nevertheless, the point still stands that we are going to have to do quite a bit more research going forward if we want to get all of that space and rocketry stuff unlocked anytime soon. And so, having access to this water here is definitely going to be useful, despite the fact that I'm fairly certain we've got maybe hundreds of bottles of water just kind of scattered around the map from the amount of mopping that we've been doing throughout the series here. Either way, the new polluted oxygen pipe or polluted water pipe, sorry, is, I guess, kind of on its way. The priority is quite high on that thing. I will set the priority of this dig here slightly higher so that hopefully they can dig through and get this all kind of built and taken care of. I think they should be able... Oh no, there's no ladder there, Isaac, you fool. If we do something like this, then they should be able to dig down and get that pipe built. Thankfully, the thermal aquatuner seems to be doing just fine. I was a little worried when I built this floor here that potentially I was trapping the heat too much around the thermal aquatuner, but for the most part, it seems fine. The area around it is about 50 degrees Celsius. It is, of course, going to still transmit a fair bit of heat. And I don't know why I put insulated tile here when there's normal tile here. I don't know if that's going to really make too much of a difference at all. But nevertheless, it seems to be doing just fine. And although it is creating like quite a warm area down here at the bottom, this is an area that our duplicants are going to spend all of their time in exosuits anyway. So my plan with the transit tubes here is to move my atmosuit docks, my atmosuit checkpoint, up into this spare room here. This used to be our Great Hall. The reason for that is that right now I think the travel time is quite long. If they want to get, for example, up to this area here, they've got to go from their bedrooms when they wake up, all the way down to the bottom of the base, across through the water lock, and then all the way back up to the top. And although moving it to here is not going to increase or decrease that travel time too much, it is going to bring it just a little bit closer to where they actually are when they wake up in the morning. And if we have our transit tubes like right here where this bottle emptier is, we can then have one pipe that goes across and then straight up to here, and then another pipe that goes across and straight down to the oil area, and that should drastically increase the speed at which our duplicants can get up and down to those areas of the base. And so I'm going to go ahead and delete these buildings here as well as the statue, and I'll also go ahead and delete the bottle emptier. We're not really using this body of water right now, so I'm going to delete that and put another tile right about here. It also has the added benefit of already being right next to our oxygen line, and so filling up these guys over here shouldn't be too much of an issue whatsoever. We might have to put another water lock right about here if we're not going to have our duplicants go through this water lock, although I guess what we could also do is maybe just move this wall kind of back to the other side of this ladder, open this door up, and then have it so that if a duplicant is going to a transit tube, they can kind of get in their atmosuit and then have like the transit tube entrance point here, because if we look at the transit tubes real quick, you'll notice that there are transit tubes, and then there is the transit tube access, which allows duplicants to enter the connected transit tube system. So they can only get into a transit tube through a transit tube access point. And so I think we'll have that right about here. I'm not actually too sure how big it is, but if we put it somewhere around here, we could then have it so that if a duplicant is either going up here or down here, they go into the transit tube. And if they're not going up there or down there, they can just come down this ladder and then go through this waterlock to get to this area here. I think that should work out just fine. It does increase the travel time a little bit of duplicants getting to, like, you know, this room, but I think that's okay. I think it's worth it to not have to put yet another waterlock in the base somewhere. So real quick, let's bump the priority of the deletion here up just a little bit. And I do kind of want to wait until the research is done before I start moving those Atmos suits over, because I kind of want to know how big everything needs to be. Now, I do want to be careful here, because I think if I build too many ladders, I am going to have this water overflow. And this is our only source of clean water that we have left. So I'm going to schedule like a priority 8 deletion of some of these tiles here, at which point a lot of that water will flow over, and at that point we can go ahead and delete the rest of the tiles at the bottom here and put a pitcher pump in for our duplicates to actually start to use this this water as well. How is that pipe down here doing? It is online, fantastic. So now all of the water is coming down this way, and you can see by the time it reaches here, it's already down at around 43 degrees Celsius, which is already about 30 degrees lower than it was earlier when it was coming out of this area. So thankfully, it does seem to be cooling down in this area. Don't get me wrong, it was cooling down on its way up this way as well, but the thing is, when it was coming up this way, it was cooling down by heating up the area that our duplicants spend time in, whereas down here, it's heating up the part that no one spends time in. There is the slight possibility that this gets fully backed up. Is this still working? It is still working, however, rather slowly. Oh, of course, because right now we're only... I mean, I guess it's both a good and a bad thing, because right now we're only using the water as and when we need it. Like, it's being used on a supply basis, so only when the water is used is it cooled by our thermal aqua tuner and thus made by our sieve here. Someone has made a mess. It's... oh, gosh dang it. How... you know, these freaking duplicates, they do it every time. Just don't trap yourself in like that, my friend. Please, can I get a priority, a high priority deletion of some of these tiles? I would very much so not like to have a repeat of the last episode. And I would like to end this episode, hopefully, with as many or more duplicates than we started with. Ideally, actually, we don't even need to rebuild that tile, now that I think about it. This water pipe is already done. This tile is unnecessary, so we can leave that as it is for the time being. How are they doing on the water here? This is fantastic. Let's go ahead and delete this. Let's delete this. Let's delete all of these ladders as well. And then we'll go ahead and we'll throw a pitcher pump probably right about here, as soon as this is gone. And that should allow our duplicates, or maybe even here, actually, I might do it a little bit higher up. No, we should probably do it here so they can get right to the bottom of that body of water there. We are massively oversaturated on hatches right now. Like, there are way too many hatches here. I don't really know what to do about that. They are overcrowded, so their happiness is down. They're glum, so they're not eating as much, and their reproduction rate is also massively down. However, we do have 33 tons of coal, and so I'm not too bothered about having an excessive number of hatches right now. These two up here are living the life. There's just 2 of them in this room. We could potentially go ahead and wrangle one of these and put them, or 1 or 2 of these and put them in this new room. Like, if I set this to priority 8, this drop-off point here, and then I go ahead and wrangle, say, 1 of these stone hatches, I have a feeling that he should go ahead and move that guy over into this room. Now, another thing, actually, that I forgot to mention in previous episodes, I think it's been this way for quite a while now, our nature reserve has, for maybe 50 cycles now, not been a nature reserve. It's been a miscellaneous room, because at some point, and I'm not quite sure when, we lost one of our plants. You'll see the 3 plants that are here are all dead because their temperature is too high, but I think even if they're dead, they still count towards the room, because if we look at the overlay here, you'll see that all we need in order to be considered a park is a maximum size of 64 tiles. So right now, the only thing that's stopping this room from being a park is its size. It's too big. So if we were to put like another door like here and some walls here, and this was not more than 64 tiles, it would become a park. The only thing stopping us from becoming a nature reserve is that 4th wild plant, which I think originally was somewhere over here. Again, I'm not too sure how that came to disappear. I don't know if it was water or if I accidentally scheduled it to be dug up or what, but for some time now, this has not been a nature reserve, which has been a good and a bad thing, I guess. It's a bad thing because our duplicates aren't getting the morale boost that they used to get, but it's a good thing because if we look at our skills overlay here, you'll see that even without the nature reserve, everybody is still doing pretty well on morale, apart from Stinky, who I assume is the one at 22%. Stinky, why are you not feeling so good? He has soggy feet. I assume that's because he's been in water somewhere. Also, could we get this pitcher pump down now? like right about there. I assume Stinky's been out trying to find stuff. It is possible that this room here that he's in is not high on decor, although it is pretty high, and so I feel like Stinky shouldn't be so low on morale. I assume it's been, I don't know where he's been, but I assume he's been out looking for water, and then has thus entered parts of the base that are pretty low decor-wise, maybe even like these areas over here where there might be little bottles of water lying around. So I'm not quite sure where he's found himself, that he's managed to get so low on stress, but hopefully it is temporary. I will go ahead and sweep up a little bit around here, or mop up, I should say, a little bit around here, because there are little pockets of water all over the place, like this right here, that we definitely shouldn't have. They're definitely lowering the morale overall, which is not good. But yeah, look at that. He's back up at 37 out of 19 morale points. And so even without the nature reserve, everybody's doing fine. And so really, there's no need to have these Atmo suits here going forward either. Speaking of which, how is he doing there? He's getting there slowly but surely. It is a high tier research, and so he does have quite a bit of advanced research still to do here. We should probably move the compost, now that I think about it. This is probably outputting quite a bit of polluted oxygen into the base, although I guess we can probably also mitigate that by just putting down 1 or 2 deodorizers either side of this guy, and that hopefully won't be a problem going forward. It looks like they didn't move the hatch, but that's because it hasn't been wrangled yet. Nevertheless, 2 more hatches have spawned in here anyway, so I guess for now I'm just going to leave this as it is. They're already cramped, but again, I'm not going to worry about it too much. We've got 36 tons of coal, so we'll leave that as it is. What we will work on whilst we wait for our transit tubes to be unlocked is we'll work on this next source of water, because as always, water is kind of this ever looming problem that we live with in our base here. How is that research going, Stinky? It is done. Fantastic. So now under base building, we have access to transit tubes, transit tube access, and transit tube crossing. Now, the transit tubes do require 50 kilograms of plastic per tile, which is kind of insane. Thankfully, though, we do now have 22.9 tons of plastic, thanks in part to our Drecos, but also in large part due to the fact that the polymer presses over here have been working quite a bit between episodes. Ever since we opened up this pocket of oil a few episodes back, and the oil kind of spilled over to this pump again, this pipe has been full of oil. The oil has been sent over to our oil refinery, and over the last couple of episodes, Bert has spent quite a bit of time down here refining that oil into petroleum and then using that petroleum with the polymer press to make plastic. And so we have made quite a bit of it. It's not making plastic right now because between episodes, I did have to disconnect this wire here because the circuit was getting overloaded, and that was turning off these machines here, which of course stops our natural gas, and then in turn cuts off the power for pretty much the entirety of our base. And so for the time being, I've had to cut that off, and so we're not getting any more oil just yet, but I have a feeling that 23 tons of plastic should be more than enough to get us hopefully quite a large amount of transit tubes, and hopefully enough to get, you know, what I want doing done. But before we get over to that, let me quickly throw down a liquid pump. And then whilst they're working on that, let's take a look at how big this transit tube access point is. It is actually not that large. However, we might need like a taller roof, because it looks like from the image here that they go in and then they get shot up initially. And I think you can't do like harsh U-turns with this, although that seems to work. So maybe this is fine. I do also wonder, I'm assuming you can have them split. So as soon as the save ends, there we go. I'm assuming you can do something like this and like this. You totally can. Nice. And then they'll have them like they'll decide at the beginning where they want to go. Because I'm thinking of just having this go out, and then when we get to like here, up and down. And I think we'll go down probably right about here, kind of like parallel with the pre-existing ladders. We are going to have to delete some holes in the wall. I guess I'll delete this one here, and then we can use what is essentially the heavy watt plate of transit tubes, aka the transit tube crossing, to go through the wall here. And we might have to do that a few times, or a few tiles. Like here, maybe we might also have to go through a wall to make sure that our duplicates can still maneuver around, despite the fact that the transit tubes are there. Let's go ahead and start throwing down these new stations here. I would like to get the Atmosuit docks kind of set up over here before we move the old Atmosuit docks away. And they have added this. I don't know when the game updated, but since we last put down Atmosuit docks, they've now added little running duplicates with arrows. I think this is a good upgrade. Previously, when I first put this down, I was like, I don't know which way this is supposed to go. Now there's some handy little duplicates there with Atmosuits on, so you can tell. So we'll throw this down. We can throw it down anyway, really. We don't need that many Atmosuit checkpoints. So I'll put it right about here just to give us a bit of space to work with on this side. And then, of course, we'll put down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Atmosuit docks. That's the number of Atmosuit docks that we have down here in the bottom right. I'm going to cancel this ladder real quick, so I'm a little scared that this water is going to come flowing over before we can actually get like everything set up and built. And then for now, I will do this. I'll put like a tile here and we'll have the ladder go a little bit higher. And we'll like dig out, you know, down this way so that we can eventually have this fall in. Previously, I was talking about the kind of like on-demand water that we have here. We could, if we wanted to. It doesn't look like it's too big of a problem because we're not backing up with the water here. I was a little worried that this would maybe like start to overflow and like maybe stop the natural gas generators working. If that does become a problem, and it might do now that we're pumping even more water in, what we could always do is put like a little reservoir or two here, and so we'll have the water cool down, but then store that cool water, just so we kind of got a buffer of cold water. Obviously, eventually we're going to run into the same issue when the buffers fill up, but for now, that would allow things to move a little bit more smoothly. I don't think we've got too much to worry about. The natural gas generators don't output that much polluted water that I think it's an issue right now, and they are offline quite a bit of the time, and so I think hopefully we should be okay with that. If it becomes a problem, we can keep an eye on it and then come back to it later on down the line. How much power does this guy use? 960 watts. Oh, I did not think ahead to look at how much power the transit tube access point needs. Oh my goodness, that is a lot of power right there. Okay, so how do we want to do this? That's a good question. I guess to make this work, we're going to have to use conductive wire, and I think the easiest way to do this is going to be to have a transformer up here where our heavy watt wire is, and then have conductive wire run through the walls and connect up solely to this guy. That is going to increase the amount of power that our base uses quite a bit, but I think it's really the best way that we can go about doing this. And so, real quick, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the transformer in the room with the rock crusher, because we can't put it here because otherwise the output pipe would be on heavy watt wire, which is of course not going to work. We'll put that here, and then we'll have conductive wire, and we do have quite a bit of copper here, which is good. Maybe not enough, but it's good to have nonetheless. And we'll have the conductive wire run down and then essentially just run straight through a bunch of these walls here until we get down to this room. I guess we'll do this as well. This wire is not necessary, so we'll delete that. And that should hopefully provide power quite nicely. We're also going to need, of course, to get ourselves a conductive wire bridge, which should be fine. And we're going to have to get a heavy watt joint plate to go up and connect heavy watt wire up into here as well. I'm assuming that the transit tube access point only uses power when a duplicant goes through it. It does have 4,000 kilojoules of charge. So I'm assuming it fills it with power and then only uses power when a duplicant actually uses it. Maybe it uses power like relative to how far a duplicant has to go. Potentially, I'm not too sure. Either way, let's go ahead and hook these guys up with power. Thankfully, this is on a line where there's actually nothing really connected to power. These machines here are connected, but nobody's ever on the massage table, and I don't think we've ever yet to use the apothecary, so really this is kind of the best line for our atmosuit checkpoints to be on. They should always have enough power to be able to run, which is fantastic. And at this point, we can probably look to start moving these checkpoints here. Now, we do have to be careful about this, because if we don't be careful, then we could end up with duplicants trying to go, you know, into the ice biome or down to the hottest part of the map without any exosuit on. I think what we're going to have to do is probably delete this entire wall here so that people who come past can still get down, and then probably block off this here like that. That is thankfully going to make this back into a park. I think that's less than 64 tiles there. So we are going to have a park again, albeit a park that nobody ever uses. And I guess actually, thinking about it, we should bring that wall back and do it like here. If we wall it off on this side, we can actually make it a park that people can use and hopefully will use going forward. So we'll build the wall there. I will set that to like a priority 9. Never mind, it's already set to priority 9. So hopefully that will stop them coming over and using this checkpoint and start them using this checkpoint once we got rid of that and once we can get down through this ladder. We don't need to wall off this area just yet because right now there's nowhere for them to go. Like, they can't get down this way. Although eventually it probably is just good practice to kind of wall this off here so that no one ends up going through that by accident. I will set the priority of the deletion here to 9 because I think right now they can't... Yeah, there we go. Previously, I don't think they could get back in. So now I think we are safe to delete these atmosuits, because the only way they can get back into the base now is through this checkpoint. And so as they go through the checkpoint, they should take their suits off. We do have the problem with this door. I will delete the door and move it back over to like this side of the room. And that should be fine. We'll fill in the floor there. We'll put the door really as far to the left as we can. I guess we'll put it like right here where the initial door is. We'll just have like a ladder down the left-hand side here. And that should continue to allow our duplicants to access the plethora of stone hatches and the 30 plus tons of coal that we now have in our base. And finally, have they managed to build the pipe? They have. They've almost got it done. We do have insufficient resources to build the last couple of wire here, but thankfully we do have other materials ready to go. Oh no, we don't. They've used them all. Okay, in that case then, back to the metal refinery it is. What resource do we have the most of? We have got a ton of iron, so let's go ahead and schedule like 16 refined iron there. And then once that's built, we can actually go ahead and hook up the transit tubes. Whilst we wait for them to do that, let's see if it's actually, if we've got what it takes, I should say, to get this going. So you can't go through ladders, which is fine. We actually don't need these top couple of ladders here, so I will delete those at a priority 9. I'll also delete... okay, so we have a problem here. And that problem is that our duplicants currently cannot access this area because there's no suits in this area. Real quick, I'm going to undock some of the suits here, and I'm going to click deliver suit on 2 of these, and I'm going to set the priority of that delivery to 7, so that they'll deliver the suits from here to here, at which point we can then go and undock all of the suits here, and they can bring those suits up and over to the new suit area, and then after that, multiple duplicants will be able to come through to this area and get their work done. Everyone is sleeping right now, though, so that is fine. The water is being pumped around, which is good. We should be okay for a good couple of extra cycles now that we've got that water ready to go. This guy is on his last legs here. The polluted water down here is very much so almost gone, but that is fine. We can just delete that pipe and have done with it. We can also break through here, actually, and squeeze like a little bit more polluted water out of the setup if we really wanted to, which I think we do. I think we really want to try and get as much of the water, you know, from the map as possible, so we'd have to come back later on at cycle like 900 and try and pump it away again. Could we please get these suits delivered, like priority 8 maybe? Okay, so it took them a little bit longer than I thought it would, but we finally have exosuits here just before our atmosuit checkpoint. I've taken down all of the other atmosuit checkpoints, and I've gone ahead and hooked all of these guys up with oxygen. Originally I just had the pipe go down and across, and with that setup, all of the oxygen goes into the first suit and then to the second suit and then to the third and so forth. Whereas if you do it like this and you have them go kind of across the top pipe and then down, the way it works now is that half of the oxygen will go into this one. So the first suit does still get more oxygen than the other suits, but if you do it this way, then all of the suits should still get a little bit of oxygen, because what should happen is half of the time it'll go straight down, half of the time it'll go across, and then that same happens again and again. So 50% goes here, and then 50% goes here, and then of the 50% that goes here, 50% goes here, 50% goes here, and then of the 50% that goes here, splits again and again and again and again. But this end slot does still get some oxygen some of the time. As you can see, that one there went all the way to the end because a very small percentage of the time, it is, you know, just statistically likely that it will do so. So it does still mean that this one fills up first, but it does mean that there's at least a little bit of oxygen in all of the suits, and so hopefully our duplicants can use that, because our duplicants are not out there all that long. They don't need a fully charged up Atmo suit, at least not just yet. And so right now it's more important just to have a little bit of oxygen in all of them, at least, you know, whilst we wait for these to charge up. As time goes on and we just wait, they'll all fill up and they'll be full eventually. But for now, I just want to be able to have as many duplicants working on this side of the base as possible. So looking at the transit tubes here, I have deleted the concrete that was here before, and they still can't get over there, which is good. I was worried for a second that I'd done something wrong. It's fine. We do have the problem of maybe gases getting over here, and it might not be a terrible idea for me to put like a wall in like here. These don't need to be priority, top priority, but we can make them top priority. That's fine. If we do something like this, and we have our transit tube wall lock go right about there, I'll set these to priority 9 after this, because they don't need to be such a high priority. But if we do something like that, that way the polluted oxygen and all of the hydrogen and chlorine and whatnot that's in this side of the water lock won't come through and won't enter the core of the base. We do now have more refined metal, and so we can finally go ahead and finish off the building here. We can hook it up here, 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 and here. I'm hoping that's not an unreachable build. I don't think it is. I think they can do it through the floor there, and through like diagonally through the floor there. And I think once that's done, this guy should have power. So again, ideally, this is going to come across this way. Now, you'll notice the first obstacle that we run into is this storage bin here, which is currently holding, I think, slime and polluted dirt. So we do want to keep all of our slime and our polluted dirt away from the core of the base. So I'm going to build another storage bin and set that to slime and polluted dirt and set it to quite a high priority, because as soon as we delete this here, we do want all of that slime and all that polluted dirt being almost instantly moved over into this new bin here. So polluted dirt and slime, priority 9, and then please, priority 9, can we delete this and this to allow everything to move through? Also, while we're at it, you can delete the the conveyor rails as well. These do not need to be here anymore. We're not, to be fair, we don't really need the algae distillers anymore either. We're not using algae as a source of oxygen anymore, so we don't really need it, although it's not a high priority to get those deleted just yet. For now, I want to focus on getting our transit tube across to here. Is that right? I guess we want it one tile further back, although, yeah, we'll have the split be here. So we'll have one that goes down to be alongside the fire pole that goes this way, and then we'll have this one go across and then up to be alongside the ladder that goes this way. Now, there could be, I'm going to delete some of that for now because I don't want them to build that just yet. There could be a slight problem here, and the problem I'm foreseeing is I think that they're going to be able to fairly easily get to a location using the transit tubes, but if we want them to come back, we're going to have to build transit tube access points on both sides of the setup, right? Especially for this area down here where there is currently no power, that could prove tricky. Even just having them go down via transit tubes is obviously still faster than the not having go down in transit tubes, and so it's still going to make the whole process a little quicker, but ideally going forward, it would be nice if we could bring heavy watt wire all the way down here so we can actually have them come back via transit tubes as well, because it is quite the distance getting to the bottom of the base there. Less so for getting up here, we could just have a fire pole to bring them back down. You know, coming down is a lot faster than going up, so we could have transit tubes going up and then a fire pole coming back down. I actually think the fire poles are faster than the transit tubes, so the only like item in the game that are faster than the transit tubes are duplicates going down fire poles. So if we continue this ladder up to where I think the next steam geyser is, we could then just have a fire pole that comes down, maybe on the other side or maybe just on the other side of the transit tube, and that should work out just fine. I will delete these algae distillers here because these are, as I mentioned previously, no longer needed. Are these reachable? These are unreachable builds. Okay, so in that case, somewhat annoyingly, we are going to have to put down some ladders, but I think just doing something like this should make them all reachable. Maybe one here as well so they can reach that. We are going to have to delete all of those after the fact, but that is fine. We'll delete this ladder as well. It's unnecessary, and we'll schedule the building of the transit tube in the middle like so. And then here, we're going to have a transit tube that comes all the way down. We're going to delete these tiles, so that's fine. We'll get rid of those in a second. And that's going to keep on going all the way down. And then at this point, it's going to go across and continue all the way down. I don't know if this works. I would assume it does. If they let you build it, I assume it works that way. For now, we'll put it to there. I do want it to go further down, but for now, we'll have our duplicates like plopped out on this bit of abyssalite here, just so we can test whether or not this actually gets the job done. I would like you to dig up this sleet wheat here, if you wouldn't mind. I'd also like you to delete these tiles here and here so we can continue our transit tube down. We can delete this now. This was previously for water. We needed water to not flow over into our water lock. Now I don't think that's as much of an issue, and if it is, we can always just build the tile one tile over, like right here. And I guess we can also put a tile like right there as well. And at that point, we can just completely get rid of both of these tiles here, and that should work out just fine. Priority 9, please, on the deletion there. And then I'll also delete this as well. You are also no longer needed. We still don't have power here. What is holding up our power line? It is nothing. This should be getting power. Maybe it's possible that it can't accept power until... No tube connected. There is tube connected, though. Oh, does this have to go further down? Like, maybe it has to go... Nope. That's not right. I assume they do come out the top. I don't think that has to connect to another transit access point. Although I could be wrong. Let me read the, like the database for this real quick. Yeah, so duplicates require access point to enter tubes, but not to exit them. So they should be able to be just, like, dropped out on the bottom here. So that should be fine. It should be, I think, just the case that we connect all of this pipe up. And they've done a pretty good job of building this quite quickly here. I'm very proud of our duplicates. But let's get that going. Let's dig up through here. We are going to need a couple of crossings, because I would like to keep some of the flooring here in place, but we'll do that. And then we'll do this. And at that point, they should be pretty much ready to go. We do still have some ladders that need building and whatnot. This might be bugged, although usually when I think something's bugged, it's just me being an idiot. Okay, so again, a couple of cycles later, and I think I've managed to figure this out. Finally, charge is taken care of. I'm not quite sure why it wasn't charging before. I still don't know what was causing the problem there, but another problem that was showing up is that it said no tube was connected, and that is because you have to have the initial bit of tubing go directly up. Now, I'm not quite sure how much tubing you have to have going directly up, but we've got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 tiles here that go straight up before our first turn, and that seems to be enough, so they do have to go down a little bit now before they can go up, but it's connected up to power. It's connected up with tubing. Everything it seems to be working as intended. And so I guess it's time to actually see if our duplicates will use it. So as I mentioned earlier, down here at the bottom, we're looking for one of those oil reservoirs so we can actually start to pump out unlimited oil. And if you look at the right-hand side here, you'll see a bunch of neutronium. This is like the far right-hand side of the map, so we can't go any further than this. And so, although there could be an oil reservoir like down here somewhere, I think it's much more sensible for us to dig to the left and try and find one, you know, in the plethora of space that we have on the left-hand side here yet to be discovered. Now, I would love to not have to dig through the crude oil already here, and I'd also love to dig through as little abyssalite as possible, so I'm thinking of digging probably down like here, if we do like something like this, and we just go across and then down, and then start digging left until we find a reservoir. I didn't see it, but did they use the transit tubes? I need to see somebody shot up in a transit tube, please. Oh, there we go. Let me turn off like super speed. I can even follow. Please let me follow Bert. Oh, I can't, but I think Stinky is about to jump in as well. So let's follow Cam on Stinky. And then let's hit play and Alt-S. Oh, no, it's too fast. It's way too fast. Oh my goodness. Okay, are we on? Okay, slow it down. Slow it right down. There we go. Okay, could I would love to see somebody use that again. They do use it though. And that's fantastic. I think he used it to get up here, bizarrely enough. Here we go. Okay, take two. Hopefully he's going down to the bottom, although I don't think he is. I think he's going just out to... Yeah, he's just using it for the shortest of trips. I love it, though. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, so, yeah, the only trouble now is getting back up. You'll see that it's taking quite a while for Bert here to get up to where he needs to be. But look at this. Frankie is having a whale of a time, headed all the way down. They don't seem to mind the sharp turn too much. I did have to put a bit of tile here. They can't come out on anything that's not like man-made. Like I tried having them just land on abyssalite. For whatever reason, that didn't work. So you do have to have some kind of man-made tile there for that to work. But we do have them. We've got the transit tubes. They are ready and raring to go, which is fantastic. They'll continue to build this ladder down as well, which is great. We will continue this up here as well. Actually, I might as well do that now. We've probably got the plastic for it, right? Yeah, we've still got 16 tons of plastic. And so it has used a couple of tons to get this going here, but I think for now we'll just do something like maybe like, oh gosh, hold on. Let me get rid of this. Maybe something a little bit, wait for the save, and a little bit like this. I'm hoping that's not too many turns too close together. I don't think it should be. And then we can just get our fire pole and have that go essentially from the same space. I guess for now we can have it come from about here because I don't expect anyone to be going too high just yet. Although again, I do want to dig up and see if we can find that steam vent in the next episode. But for now, we'll do it from like here, and we'll just have this run right down to, I guess here is the best we can do. Can we go over these? No, like I don't think those will connect. So I think this is the best we could do. I mean, ideally, like given that this is the waterlock they've got to go through, ideally this pipe, I guess, would be on the other side. And so what I might do, despite it being a real big nitpick, real quick though, is delete the tubing and have the tubing go up on the left and have the fire pole come down on the right. If we do it that way, then the fire pole can take them all the way down to the waterlock. Annoyingly though, do I want to move this? You know what? Cancel the deletion of the fire pole. I'm going to leave the fire pole there because right now that fire pole is perfectly in line with our lower fire pole. So if we delete some of these tiles in between, what we can do is we can have the fire pole that goes all the way from the top here, all the way down. So duplicates don't even have to stop to get off if they need to go like from the oil area, oh sorry, from the steamed area all the way down to the oil area. I don't expect many people are going to be doing that, but what we can do instead is we can just have the transit tube split off here, which I think is perfect because this is where the other tube goes down anyway, so they're kind of nice and in line here. So we'll set the deletion priority up just a little bit. We'll set these all to priority 9 to get rid of all of those. And then we will also go ahead and connect up the missing bits of fire pole once again, like so. We'll have that one all the way down and connect up to the pre-existing fire pole. That is going to be great. And then once again, transit tube from here up and all the way through the roof. It doesn't go through anything too sketchy, and across and out there. Perfect. They're going to have to dig out some, keep hitting the wrong key there. They're going to have to dig out some of this slime here to get all the way up and to build all of that pole there. And that might also not be close enough for this ladder to deal with. And so temporarily, I think we might also have to build a ladder that goes like from here all the way up alongside it, just so they can get all this built. But once that's done, we'll get rid of the ladder. And I guess we don't even need to delete this ladder, actually. We can probably delete this ladder because without this ladder that we're building right now, they're not going to be able to get on the fire pole. So I guess what we'll do is we'll have the fire pole, of course, continue up to about here, and then we'll delete this ladder on the right-hand side here, as we no longer need that ladder. And we should hopefully have a perfect system. We've got a transit tube that goes all the way down and all the way up, mostly down, as that's kind of the long way that people have to go. And if we're going to put another checkpoint anywhere, it's going to be at the bottom so that our duplicates can get the transit tube to go back up as well. But that would require quite a bit of heavy watt wire. We do already have it, like here, and so we could just run it down like behind the ladder that goes along this section. So building another entrance point, maybe like down here, probably wouldn't be too bad, because I do want to bring this down as well once we find an oil reservoir. And speaking of which, look at that. We have found our first oil reservoir. Fantastic. That is actually such a good find. That's going to make it so much easier in the next episode for us to come in, throw down one of the oil wells and look at starting to pump out some of the oil that is available from that guy, and then potentially look at starting to use that to create petroleum, and potentially using that petroleum to make power, but also to make plastic. Now, the way we're doing it at the moment is we're putting our oil into the oil refinery. The downside to that is that the oil refinery takes in 10 kilograms of crude oil and produces 5 kilograms of petroleum. But if you take the crude oil and you heat it up to 400 degrees Celsius, 399.9 degrees Celsius, it turns into petroleum at a 1-to-1 ratio. So instead of putting it into the oil refinery, if we can find a way to heat the petroleum up to 400 degrees Celsius, which is crazy high, but if we can do it, we can get 10 kilograms of petroleum per 10 kilograms of crude oil, effectively doubling our output and not requiring a duplicate to stand there and turn a wheel, and also not requiring the power of 480 watts to get that done. There are a few ways we can do this, and we'll talk about them more a little bit in the next episode. One way involves using the lava down here, the magma, which is currently at 1,659 degrees Celsius, but if we can kind of harness the power of that, we could potentially heat our oil up that way. Another involves using a bunch of thermal aquatuners, which is an option that I'm leaning more towards, simply due to the fact that if we do it with thermal aquatuners, it gives us the added benefit of removing a bunch of heat from the base as well, because we can use the same thermal aquatuners that are heating up the oil to cool down like our water or our polluted water or the steam that's coming out of our core steam vents, anything like that. We can use it to cool down that, and also maybe even this area over here, which of course is getting a little warm, although is now colder than it was just a few episodes back. So a couple of options there that we have for heating up crude oil. That's what we'll look at in the next episode. Throw down an oil well, try and heat up crude oil to petroleum, and then hopefully have a nice supply of petroleum, which we could even use for a petroleum generator, which produces a massive amount of power, 2 kilowatts per petroleum generator, and that's without being tuned up. And so once it's tuned up, should produce even more than that, which is fantastic. But for now, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's episode there. You'll see Stinky loving that fire pole. He took it like all the way down from up here, right down to the bottom. That is fantastic. We've got our transit tubes finally up and running. Our duplicates can use them to get up to the top here. I'm hoping they will still use them to get up there. Like, I know I've put this quite high, but I'm hoping they still recognize that going up the transit tube and then down is faster than going up the ladder to get to this area. I think they do. So they should use that, hopefully wherever possible. But anyway, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more, be sure to go ahead and hit like. It really does help out a lot. Leave a comment down below, subscribe if you're new here to get notified as soon as new videos go out. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.